it should have been terrifying from the very beginning. That's war type casualties. I mean, in modern warfare, I don't even think there are casualties like that in war anymore. It does raise the question of what exactly is to come. But oil's gone negative for the first time in history.
And the warmest of welcomes to this episode of ORT, where we look primarily but not exclusively at the African diaspora's experience of living with COVID 19. And we continue our conversation with Scotch about COVID 19 related deaths with people within his immediate network.
She had called to say, "Hey, you remember my friend such and such?" So yeah, said he passed away from COVID. I said, "Are you
Whoa.
serious?" Prior to that, one of my friends calls and said, "Hey," now we're getting kind of back to the timeline where it just started to kind of surface here in the US. She said, "Hey, remember that trip that I was telling you that my girlfriends were going on?" And for whatever reason, she had chose not to go last minute, right?
Mhm.
And which actually, I think a part of that is because her and I were talking, and I was like, "Hey, you see what's going on out here?" And I said, "Don't take it lightly." And I guess she had chose based on that and other information that she may have gathered on her own that she wasn't going to take the trip. And she called uh, to say that her friend that went on that trip had actually been quarantined, right? Because after the trip, she went to a second location where the other girls didn't, where the other ladies didn't go to, and she ended up feeling sick and stuff like that, and ended up going to the doctor and ended up being quarantined because of it, right? Um, Before that, it was just something that you heard about on the news happening in other areas. So and again, I
Mhm.
went backwards in time, kind of just recounting the situations as they occurred, from most recent going backwards. But it started off, to answer your question specifically, it started off as something that was foreign on the news, not happening
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
to
So
inching
distance.
closer. Right. And so yeah, it inched closer and closer and closer and closer. So it started with knowing someone who knew someone that was quarantined. Then it went to knowing someone who knew someone who passed away. To it then proceeding to another person that I know that their brother was in serious condition, to a family member, their spouse passing away.
I would find that
So
quite scary.
well, it is. But what that showed me too, which sometimes you have to kind of just kind of look at the big picture sometimes and step back. And what that kind of says to me is this. At first it was like kind of like shock, like, "Oh, really? Quarantine? Are you serious?" To, "Oh, this person passed away. Oh, wow. Somebody that you know." No,
Mm.
um it's more than scary. It's terrifying. But when you look at the big picture of things, it should have been terrifying from the very beginning.
Okay.
And that's what I don't think. And I don't know if this has something else to do with maybe the desensitization of modern America, or maybe the world.
So I think it's a similar picture here. I was speaking last week on the show, and I said it feels surreal because it's happening, but at the same time, because we're not in a war zone, but we're getting war-like casualties,
Yeah.
and it feels surreal because the shops are not smashed up, the roads are not bombed, the buildings are not dilapidated, but yet we could be in Gaza.
right,
or worse, we could be in a war zone, like I said, First or Second World War with some of the figures, especially when you look at the numbers in New York.
right,
It's just crazy.
right, right. And here's the thing you have to look at, right? So it's funny when you say the war zone, because when I hear you say the stores aren't, smashed down or dilapidated, but they don't have much in them.
Mm,
They don't have the everything that they would normally have, right?
yeah.
And yeah, the roads aren't bombed, but they're clear,
Mm,
you know?
mhm.
So it is, and the casualties as you mentioned, uh, that's war type casualties. I mean, in modern warfare, I don't even think there are casualties like that in war anymore,
Yeah. Yeah, no, for
right?
real. Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause even with Bin Laden, it's like 6 people killed from Bin Laden, and that was it. And then it's a done deal.
Right, right. And I'm sure there's might be a little bit more happening, but they're not getting death tolls of 100,000,
No, no,
200,000.
no, no, for real. It's like First World War, Second World War.
Yeah,
That's
you're talking about something different now. So I guess it starts to raise additional questions. So if this is now, what is to come,
whoa.
right?
Tell me.
Right. So, and we can have different perspectives and people may arrive to different conclusions, but I think one thing that can't be denied is that it does raise the question of what exactly is to come, you know?
Yeah.
What happens now? And being that, you want to stay in tune to what's happening in the world and be in tune with global news and financial news as well. Today, oil has went negative for the first time.
Yep.
And I don't know if I can talk about stuff like this, but you know,
What you
uh,
want, man?
all right. Well, oil's gone negative for the first time in history.
About
In
time
history.
too.
So it's a, huh? What was that?
About time too.
Well, that'd be nice if the world was truly prepared for
Yeah.
it, right?
Shame.
Eh, Yeah, if the world was truly prepared for it. So if we all had a solar fan or solar panels at our homes and at our places of business, yeah. If all of our cars were battery operated or something, then yeah, we're not
Mm,
ready for that. So, but now you have to, and I don't want to get too far into it, but that is a commodity that can be manipulated because it has to be produced.
hmm.
And overproduction can drive down the cost per barrel.
Yeah.
Now, why would the people, the companies, and the entities that have the power to either flood the market or to pull back to kind of keep the price stable, why would they choose to flood the market at a time like this?
Yep. OPEC and all the rest of them. Yeah. It's
Right. Now, let's keep in mind the oil is a part of the energy sector. So, if you're driving down the prices in the energy sector, it is not very far fetched for me to believe that when these companies can't pay their employees to come to work, even as essential workers, they cannot afford to pay them. It is not very far fetched for me to believe that one day you can go into your home, hit that light switch, and it doesn't come on.
going to turn on. Yeah. Yeah. It
Who
and it
wants
and as you speak, it's like the dial just needs to be turned one or two more notches before we end up in anarchy.
That's very true. And that's where, and when I ask the question, what's next? Um, that is one of the things that I don't even want to breathe life into by even saying it.
Mhm.
because I think it's very close to happening.
Well, there's
And
already
that's
protests in some states already about, and people ignoring
I've
the
seen that.
social distancing advice. So,
Oh, right. Well, I thought you were going to bring up the fact that there are certain states that are protesting because they want to go back to work,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, that too.
So, yes. Now, there was one flyer that I even seen where it said, even if you're sick, come out because it's your right. And I'm thinking, isn't that a phenomenal way to get more people sick,
Yeah.
right? So,
If they believe in it, because I do wonder if some of these people, especially the Trump supporters, if they also disbelieve in climate change and disbelieve in everything else except God-given right to be American.
well, here's the thing. People have the right to believe whatever they like. And it kind of reminds me of the story of the emperor with no clothes, right?
Mhm.
So he had the right to believe that the clothes that he was wearing was magical.
Did I wear some
He had that,
money?
yeah, he had that right,
So
you
let me
know?
let me ask you, Scotch. With these deaths and this kind of fluctuating reality, it's far away, it's getting closer. You get used to it. You acclimatize to the numbers, because after a while, the numbers on TV are just numbers unless it's somebody close to you. How are you looking after yourself, and what have you changed in terms of your kind of health regime to keep yourself healthy as an African
That's a,
American, let me say?
that's a great question. Um, well, first and foremost, the most important part is that we cannot allow ourselves to say, oh, these are just numbers on the screen.
Okay.
And that goes back to what I was saying when you take a step back and kind of look at it all. And I get that feeling like we should have been extremely terrified from the very beginning.
Mhm.
Um, and that feeling has kept me grounded. So the numbers aren't just numbers on the screen. And regardless of when then now it is a lot closer to more and more people, to where they could relate to it on a personal level, which I think is now what is kind of motivating people to understand how serious it is. But for the ones that it's not yet close to them, so they can't relate on a personal level, I believe hopefully when they hear these words and others like it allows them to not just look at the numbers on the news as numbers on the screen or numbers in print, however they're receiving their information. I think that in itself is the most important because when you when you keep that at the forefront of your mind, it's going to govern the way you kind of go about doing
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
So now I have how has it changed my life? Well, I now have a mask at my front door. So right where before I go through the door, I grab my mask and I have a bag that I keep my gloves in.
Okay.
So this is everyday life now. When you go outside, um, first thing it's almost like now it's like before it was you grab your keys, you grab your phone,
Yep.
you go to work. Now it's you grab your keys, you grab your phone, you grab your mask, you grab your gloves. And now so much stuff to carry, you need to have a little bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. You
and
probably need several pairs of gloves.
well, absolutely, that's what I mean. Yeah, you're not just going to carry one pair of gloves because you have to dispose of them every time you go into a place.
Hmm.
So, um, so even it's well because even when you go to look at a house or something like that, you have on your gloves and you're gonna dispose of it every time. You go to the store, same thing. Now more and more states are implementing which I don't really. Okay, so this is another mind-bending fact. So more and more states are saying, "Hey, you have to have on, you have to have on uh, a mask to go into
Okay.
a store." But then on the
Okay.
other hand, you have other states that are opening up more places. So it seems that those are two opposite directions,
Mm.
two completely opposite directions.
Yeah. It's not joint up thinking.
Absolutely not, because you have one place saying, hey, listen, not only are we still restricting the businesses that are open, but for the businesses that are open, you got to wear a mask, you got to wear gloves.
Yeah.
Now, in other places, they're saying, hey, they're opening up beaches. They're saying, okay, well, we're going to open up the downtown areas. We're going to open up. That's going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
It also
Now,
it's also sound like short term thinking.
um, I don't know. I don't think it's short term thinking at all because uh, in one state where you have Georgia, Tennessee, and even parts of Florida, Jacksonville Beach opened up. Um, so here's one of the things they said for I believe it was either Tennessee or Georgia, where he said, "I know that this is not going to flatten our curve, right?" And for the ones that are not familiar with the term "flatten the curve," it's about basically bringing down the number of those being infected and the casualties. Flattening the curve is about it going down instead of continue going up.
Mm.
So literally, what you say with that being said, you're saying they're saying, "Hey, we're going to open these places up. We know it's going to make the infection go up, but we're still going to open it up. People need things to do. Like
Cavalier.
what? Die?
Yeah, the Cavalier man.
Right.
But
So this is something that
you know something. As you speak, one of the things that has to be acknowledged is America is the leader of free market capitalism. So this, and it runs really deep in the blood of America.
mhm,
So maybe this is
absolutely.
something, what they're communicating is, this is something we're willing to die for. Our idea, our ideology of free market capitalism.
Yeah, that's major. That's major. That's really major. That is major.
Because, you know, they have this allergic reaction to anything that kind of impinges on individualism. They see it as creeping socialism. And socialism to them means communism. And it's something that just, they have this allergic reaction. They just don't want anything to do with it.
You know, there's a part of me that wants to agree with that, and I would agree with that on a surface level. Why do I say that? The part of me that wants to agree with that is because yes, on a surface level, that is the tone. That's the reaction,
Okay.
right? But then dive a little deeper, right? Those same people, those very same people that are saying, we don't want this to be a socialist country and we don't need this and we want free marketing and all of that. Listen, those are the same people that are receiving government assistance in many cases,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Right? Yeah, and no disrespect or offense for anybody who receive government assistance. It's not a knock on that at all. Because I'll give you another turn of it, right? The same people that are saying that, they're looking for write-offs,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Tax write-offs and things of that nature, which is
Yeah.
still a form of an assistance
No,
for your
it
business.
is government assistance,
Right.
without a doubt.
Okay. Okay. So that's why I said on the surface level I can agree with that. But
Uh,
if you just go a little bit deeper, you'll see that
yeah.
you'll see the hypocrisy in it.
Okay.
Right.
But I have one. Well, we're going to touch on this more when we speak again, because we spoke the other day, and you were throwing some interesting points about this whole COVID-19 and how stimulus, how it's being used, but we'll do that in another conversation. But before you
All
go,
right.
how are you looking after yourself? You know, because you've, like I said, one of the things I wanted to find out from you was the impact this is having on you in terms of how you're managing your health,
Yes.
diet, and stuff like that. Has anything changed
Right.
for you?
Yeah, it has. I mean, so you have to be more mindful about it. So for me personally, it has affected. There is an effect there, and in this case, I would actually have to be completely 100% honest and say more adverse effect
Okay.
because prior to this, you have a routine,
Mm,
and in the routine, working out, it was in there, right? And at first, you kind of try to hold it together, but for us, it kind of life kind of stopped very abruptly.
yeah.
So and how it was given to us was equally as unclear, as abruptly as it stopped it, as abruptly as it stopped. So uh, at one point, I wasn't even sure if we could actually go outside of our home.
Mm,
At one point, so and then it's like, okay, well, if this thing is out there, they weren't sure how long it lived on surfaces, how it was being
hmm,
transmitted, that kind of thing. So who wants to go outside to work out when you don't even really know what's going on? Who wants to go to the gym when you don't know what's going on?
mm,
And um, for me, and then it's like you're home a lot more, right? So whereas you would be busy working, now you have more free time and you might be eating more, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. We need to put
so
the camera on your fridge and see how often you visit.
yeah, how many times you go to the fridge just to open it up and look? And don't get me wrong, I'm very grateful uh, to the Most High that I'm able to be in a position to where I am not completely devastated, right?
Mm,
And this is why I guess for me, I always look at not only just myself, but how is this affecting other people? And for some reason, I actually feel for them the same way I feel for myself,
yeah. Yeah.
So that and then for it's just not a good time, man. But so health wise, emotionally is rough because I look and I feel thinking about what other people may be going through, and that affects me, right?
Mm,
But the effect, right? The what affects me, effect, right? With the E is dieting, right? It's a lot easier to do my intermittent fasting when you have other things to do,
of course. Of course. Yeah.
right? So this is actually a challenge
Yeah.
because now, which is something that I kind of just recently challenged myself to do because I saw that I was gaining weight,
Mm,
right? So, or I felt it. And I'm like, okay, so I recently just really started forcing myself to get back into at least my morning workout.
yeah.
So, workout right away. Um, because in this situation, when you're working from home, the day will fly by on you.
Yeah.
And it's not the routine is not the same. And
No.
then also where you would say, okay, well, I'm just gonna run here, I'm gonna run there, or oh yeah, let me go over here. No, I'm not doing any of that.
Mm,
I'm sheltering in place. I am definitely practicing social distancing, um, because this thing is real. It's really happening. Why is it happening? I have no clue.
we'll pick that up in the next conversation.
Right, I have no clue.
But
But
have you made any
after,
dietary changes? Is there something you're eating more of and less of as a way of keeping yourself healthy?
well,
As
here's
a
the
as a
thing.
as a, as a,
Again,
as a preventative step?
well, I feel like I was actually eating more healthy before this started because
Right.
I was buying fresh fruits, right? I would always have my fresh fruits. I would also always have my salads,
Mm,
cucumbers, stuff like that. Like, so for example, as a snack, and then again, so I'm working out, I have my routine, I have my intermittent fasting going, and I would eat vegetables like cucumbers and stuff at night. You get a
mm.
little hungry or something like that,
Yeah, 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 for
cucumbers,
real.
Um, But because now I don't want to go to the supermarket every day.
Yeah,
I
for
don't want to go to the supermarket every few days. And when you're eating fresh, you have to go to the market pretty more often.
yeah,
And that's one of the issues that I've been having. So I have not been having I have my diet has changed, right? So and I've bought like vegetables and stuff to freeze and use those, but it's still not the same because again, by the time you go to we would have to go at least weekly, right?
yeah,
At least, and that's the longest you can go when you're eating fresh vegetables and fruits all
yeah.
the
No,
time,
without a doubt.
right? So I've frozen some, yeah, but again, so the ones that you freeze, you can use that to make smoothies. You know, the vegetables that you can freeze, you can chop those up, blend those up, and cook with them. It'll melt out and stuff when you're cooking. But ultimately, my salads and stuff like that, they kept spoiling. And as this thing continued to intensify, I would say you had to make changes to that because I don't want to go outside. I
Yeah,
don't want to run the risk like to go out there. So yeah, the main thing that I've been doing at this point is just trying to work out. I make sure I get a good 20 minutes of cardio in every single day, at least 20 to 30 minutes every single day. Like I said, now I'm back on my morning workout as well. But the biggest thing that we could do to stay healthy for real, the biggest thing is to stay home, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah,
Go outside as least as possible because every time you go outside, you're running the risk. You don't know who have it, and
yeah,
you don't know who had it that was there. But if this thing really lives on surfaces, and there's still conflicting information. Some places say 3 days. Some people say up to 9 days. In
yeah,
between that and in between 3 and 9 days. Well,
yeah,
that's a very long time. And
yeah.
depending on the surface, so now you have to be more like we're all like turned into like scientists and doctors, right? So now you got to look at
Paranoid scientists and doctors.
yeah, and construction people, right? Like, so people are looking at this like, is this just shiny plastic or is this metal? Because they're trying to figure, like you don't know. So instead of trying to get out there and act like you know what's happening,
Keep your
you might as well
backside
just stay
quiet.
out the way.
Okay, Scotch.
Yeah, stay
Thank
out
you
the
very
way.
much for your time. We'll probably touch base next week. In between
Absolutely,
now
it was
and
a
then, just
pleasure.
stay safe
Will do. You as well.
and
You as
look
well.
after yourself and your family. And
Will
thank you
do.
very much for your insightful rundown in what's happening in South Florida. But we'll talk soon.
Ah, all right. Take care.
Yeah, man. Peace.
And remember, like, share, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell for further notifications. What good, my people? What good? Organize, sit down.